Hi guys, in today's video, I want to talk about some books that I've recently read. I'll be including novels and a novella, some comics and mangas. I don't usually on my channel do that type of wrap up and TBR sort of video. Not because I don't want to, but because I don't know how to schedule them. Firstly, I want to talk about the novel section because this is going to be the lengthiest of the three, and I'll be including books that I'm currently reading in all the genres, in all the categories. So I haven't read everything that's here. It's a bit of a cop-out, but still. So the first book that I want to talk about is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And to give you guys the synopsis, it's basically about a family of 4 kids that have grown up, and every single conflict that each and every one of them has bottled up comes head to head in this grand party that one of the siblings and our main protagonist, Nina Riva, throws every single year. And it's a very interesting family dynamic, and seeing how each and every one of them interacts and deals with trauma, deals with not the most healthy family relationships and family dynamics out there. And it's very believable. I really like the characters. They didn't feel two-dimensional or very stereotypical. It's a good book. I wasn't astounded by it. I wasn't disgusting. I wasn't astounded by it, and I didn't hate it. It's a good book. I do recommend it. But if you want to read something from Taylor Jenkins Reid, I do recommend Daisy Jones and the Six. I have a bit of a past with this author because I've read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I hated it. I really did not like the book. The whole Hollywood glam thing felt not necessarily not well researched and not necessarily not real, because stuff like that unfortunately happened, but it felt very glamorized, and from the perspective of not necessarily someone who has been there. I don't know the author's past. Maybe they've worked in cinema, maybe I didn't deal with those types of issues, and it felt unreal for me, a person who works there. But I just didn't like it as much. I didn't like the characters as much. But if you want to read something from this author, I do really recommend Daisy Jones and the Six. It's absolutely astounding. It's one of my favorite books. I just devoured it. And it's a story about a rock band in the 70s, I think. And obviously it's a good book. Going back, talking about Malibu Rising, it's a good contemporary book. It's an interesting story about a dysfunctional family and how one member of that family truly affected every single one of them, and in very different but very similar ways. And it's sad. It's a sad book. You have to prepare yourself for it. Maybe the ending is good. Maybe the ending shines a light on the whole situation, but still it's something not light. The next book that I want to talk about is The Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlman. And if you've seen any of my other videos, I talk about Buehlman quite often in them. I really love his prose. I really love his characters. I really love his plot and how things work in the worlds that he creates, and The Black Tongue Thief is not an exception to that thing. I absolutely adored the first book. It's the first book in a trilogy, a fantasy trilogy, and wow, is it a great intro for this whole story. We follow a thief who's incredibly sarcastic and cunning and incredibly funny. He reminds me of Matt Cawthon at times, a lot, and I just absolutely adored following him and getting to explore the world, getting to understand how everything works, seeing all the different types of people, understanding the backstories and the history of this world was astounding. And the exposition is delivered great, and everything about The Black Tongue Thief really blew me away. I didn't have the greatest I had great expectations for this book because I love Buehlman's work, but it still blew me away. It's a great fantasy book. The only downside to picking up this book is that I don't know when the second book in the trilogy will come out, so there might be a bit of waiting to do, but still, it's incredibly immersive. The plot is incredibly gripping and fun to read about, and the characters, per usual in Buellmann's style, are one of the best and most fleshed out and believable characters that I've read. So this book is a very high recommend, fantasy high recommend, so go pick it up, please. Next up, I have a novella, and I'm trying to read more short stories, more novellas, because I had a prejudice that I didn't necessarily really like short stories, and I still keep to that idea a bit, but I do find myself often picking up short stories or novellas way more often than I used to. And this novella is Prosper's Demon by KJ Parker. This author really shocked me. I did not expect to like this story as much as I did, but the way he writes characters is absolutely mind-blowing. The only thing that I'll be telling you guys, because this is a novella, I don't want to spoil, and I think anything I say is a spoiler, but we follow an exorcist, and it's truly not in any way that you've seen in media before, and it's not overdone. It's very unique and so interesting. Like, I would love to read a series, and this is my my very unhealthy trait, but I would love to read a series on this, in this world in particular. And I'm really excited to pick up any other KJ Parker books in the near future, because the way he writes characters is mind-blowing. Like, how he utilizes them and how he uses their inner thoughts and monologues to better understand them is incredible. The way he structures his scenes as well is just, I love it. Like, I really, really love it. So I do recommend it. It's under 100 pages long, so you can read it in a sitting, and it's great. Also, my accent slipped. You can read it in a sitting. And the last novel I'll be talking about is Baltimore by Mike Mignola. I haven't read Hellboy. I know this is bad of me because I do intend to read it, but I haven't. But I did pick up Baltimore, and it is a fantasy, historical fiction horror. I think it's a historical fiction horror with elements of fantasy in it, but I just loved it. We follow Baltimore, and the whole plot takes place during World War I. The thing that I really loved about Baltimore is that you get one of the best prologues out there. I was anxious throughout reading it, and I flew through it. It was just so interesting. And also, what I really loved and was utilized so well in this novel was the fact that you get a few characters around the table, and each and every one of them relates a story around one character and how they met Baltimore. And this is how the whole novel takes place. You have those three characters, and each of them relates how he met Baltimore. And I just love that trope, and it's done so well. Slowly, as you get through the stories, the tension builds, and the whole atmosphere. It's just a great story with great characters and atmosphere and everything, and you should pick it up. Also, if you guys want me to review this book, I would love to, because it happens in Romania. Spoiler alert, part of it happens in Romania. And the Romanian in the book is horrendously bad. It's so bad. Like, I don't know what happened there. But I would love to do a review on this book and give you guys the insights of the Romanian language that was used in Baltimore. So let me know in the comments below. Okay, so now let's get into the comic book part of the video. Both of these, now it just occurred to me, both of these are comic books that I'm still reading, but I'll be firstly delving into Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. Obviously, this is not a finished series, a finished saga, if you will, but I really love it. Like, I've read the whole saga, like the whole 54 issues a while back, and I fell in love with it. It might be one of my favorite comic book series that I've ever read, and I'm really happy that I didn't have to wait as long as many of you guys unfortunately had to for issue 55 to come out. but I'm beyond thrilled to finally be picking it up again and finding out what happens. And my opinion of the series so far, like issue 55 and 56, is that it's good, but it does have a huge time jump from the moment that we left our characters in the last issue, and we have to get reacquainted with them. There's a lot of exposition, a lot of new characters, so I cannot give my overall opinion of the story because it's setting up a lot. It's setting up our characters again and everything around it, but it does feel very good to be back in the universe, Bianca.
I'm Dr. Manhattan, I'm back.
I'm tired of being caught in the tangle of their lives.
But it does feel great to be back in this universe. So to give you guys a little synopsis, this is a fantasy comic book series, and it follows two characters that fall in love. They're from two different planets that are at war with each other, and they have a baby that shouldn't have happened because those lands hate each other, and the baby has powers from both of those lands. So this baby is wanted. Like, everybody wants to catch the baby, and they don't necessarily have the greatest intentions with the little girl. They want to like test her or whatever because she is the only person out there that has both of those worlds powers. And it's super interesting. It's such a, at moments sweet, at moments really heartbreaking family story, and you instantly fall in love with them. And you also have characters that instead of a head they have a huge TV. So yeah. It seems a bit quirky, but it is a bit quirky, but it's still absolutely astounding. Even though this might not be your style, I do really recommend it, and I really love the artwork. Like, I'm personally a big fan of Fiona Staples, and what she does in this series is astounding. Like, I absolutely love her. I love Brian K. Vaughan and other things that he's worked on, like Paper Girls, and yeah, Saga, one of my greatest recommendations to you guys. And the other comic book that I'm currently reading is The Last God by Philip Kennedy Johnson. In total, it has 12 issues, and I'm around the 7th issue, I think. I'm not sure, but it's incredibly astounding. I absolutely adore it. It's so dense. Like, this doesn't feel like a comic book. And when I say that, I refer to the fact that a lot of comic books feel very easy to read, even though you get super immersed in the story. Even with Saga, there are issues that you read like in under 10 minutes because they're so short. But with this, it's incredibly dense. It feels like you're actually reading a fantasy book series, and you have at the end of every single issue like 5 pages of actual writing. You get stories about very important historical figures or very important battles that happened in the history of this world that is being created in this comic book series. You get maps, you get a bunch of different civilizations and different people, and it's so interesting. It feels like you're reading a fantasy book, and it's incredibly intricate and complex, and the story is told in 2 different timelines, and it's so interesting to see how they're put in juxtaposition with each other, and you get addicted to it. Like, you cannot stop reading it. You want to find out more. You're very intrigued from the get-go, and the characters are great. Also to note, every single panel looks like a painting. It's absolutely beautiful, and it just reels you in. Even if the story wouldn't have been as great as it is, you would be still incredibly mesmerized by the art, and I really recommend it. I don't know how it ends because I'm a lazy bug and I haven't finished it before doing this video, but it's great. And it's if you're in the market for an incredibly dense comic book, this is it. This is the one to go with, and you'll certainly have a great time with it. And for my last segment of this video, we have mangas, and I have 2 of them. Firstly, Tokyo Ghoul by Sui Ishida. And I know I haven't completed it. I have 2 more or 3 more volumes to go, but this story, basically the synopsis of the story, is centered around our main character, obviously, Kaneki, who lives in Tokyo, and by some misfortune he becomes half ghoul, half human, and you get to see him struggle with finding out the rules of being a ghoul in Tokyo, because you don't know what to expect. And it's very interesting, it's very dynamic and bombastic at times, and I love Kaneki. I know it's a very mesmerizing story, but I do have moments where I feel like I need a break, because there are a bunch of exposition dumps about ghouls and how they work and everything around them, and I just get overwhelmed. And I know it's weird because I read fantasy. I should be used to exposition dumps by now, but I know it just takes me out of the story too much. But it's still great. Like, I still do recommend Tokyo Ghoul. It's an incredibly funny concept and interesting concept, and yeah, I cannot wait to finally finish it and see how it all ends. And the last thing that I'll be discussing in this video is Berserk by Kentaro Miura. I started reading Berserk just a few months ago and I love it. I'm on volume 6. I'm currently right spot on in the middle of the Golden Age, and I cannot get enough of it. I absolutely adore Guts, everything that happens with him, and seeing him become the guy that we get in the first couple of volumes. It's very interesting to see him in this very medieval setting, and then to find out more about him, to see him as a kid and see how he evolves and what made him become this very closed off and very brooding soldier. But yeah, so far I'm really enjoying it. I really want to make a review for Berserk after I finish Golden Age. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want to see that. But yeah, I really love Golden Age. I hope I'll love every single arc as much as I do this one. I do really recommend, if you guys haven't read Berserk yet, I do, like, trigger warning, there's a bunch of stuff that happens and it's very bad, so beware before getting into it, because it's very hard to go through it and read and see it when it happens. It's not horrendous, it's horrendous. But yeah, Berserk is a great story. It's very fantasy medieval with a brooding soldier. Obviously it's beloved by so many for a reason, right? So these are the books that I've recently read or I'm currently reading, and if you guys have read any of these, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or if you guys have any recommendations as to books that are maybe similar to the ones that I really loved in this video, or completely opposite but you guys think that I would like or even hate, because I would love to read a book. Let me know your recommendations down in the comments below, and I cannot wait to catch you guys next time. Bye!